I loved every minute with Shannon, but we took it to levels of supreme debate where it went right to the edge and occasionally slightly over the edge of competitive.
Yeah.
To where we got mad at each other. And by the 7th year, it's a long time, man. We had some great runs. We did some big ratings numbers, trust me, that will never be touched again in FS1 history, I doubt. God bless them, but I doubt it. But the point was that, yeah, in year 7, did we fray a little bit? Sure we did. But I fought for him to stay, and I don't know what happened between Shannon and the people upstairs because I was not privy.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he went before I went,
Yeah.
you know, and it tore me apart.
Yeah.
I did not want him to go. And I told him the last day, I sat with him in his dressing room and I said, I envy you because you're going to get to go do what I want to do.
Right.
I still had a year left on my deal. And he got pushed out the back door and it tore me up and I missed him.
What's interesting to me is, why didn't Shannon Sharpe ever communicate that? Why didn't Shannon Sharpe? It seems like, to be honest with you, he didn't speak the whole truth about what happened between him and Skip. And I get the feeling that he wanted this narrative to develop, that Skip didn't want him around and pushed him out. I know Shannon Sharpe knows what people are saying. Family, what is up? It's Providence. Thanks for tuning in. And Skip Bayless recently stopped by on a Part of My Take podcast, if you didn't know, and he told us what happened between himself and Shannon Sharpe and why the big breakup took place. Shannon Sharpe and Skip Bayless was on my favorite sports debate show, Undisputed. Probably by the ratings, the second most important debate show after First Take, which Skip Bayless had helped build and was the forefather of that program before he brought on Stephen A. Smith. And Skip Bayless is a legend in sports debate journalism. And he went over to FS1 to build Undisputed and brought Shannon Sharpe with him. They had an intense 7-year run that was filled with many clippable moments, and Shannon Sharpe really exploded in terms of popularity through that show. And so we were all taken aback when they had announced that they were going to be separating and breaking up. Now, to be fair, we did kind of see it coming because there were several events that kind of led up to it. There was this big debate about Tom Brady and his effectiveness for one football game, at which point Skip Bayless said that Shannon Sharpe was not as good as Tom Brady. Then there was the whole Damar Hamlin incident where Skip Bayless tweeted something insensitive about the incident, and Shannon Sharpe the next day was a no-show because Skip Bayless refused to take back anything he had said. And so we had noticed and saw cracks in the armor. We had noticed that things weren't going well and they were about to split apart. But I think that the show was so successful that people were kind of holding out that maybe they would actually stay together and they would actually fix things, and the show could continue because it was wildly successful. But it ended up being the case that would not happen and they did split up. But what I found interesting was the narrative that most people believed was that Skip Bayless, he being the patriarch on the show, really just had enough of Shannon Sharpe after the whole debate thing happened. And basically, alongside maybe the executives at FS1, pushed Shannon Sharpe out, right? Shannon Sharpe had been the one that had been disrespected by Skip, and Skip being this older, maybe racially insensitive kind of guy, didn't really want Shannon Sharpe around anymore. He thought he could probably find a new Negro to do debates with, and he just had enough of Shannon Sharpe and he pushed him out. That was kind of the narrative that had built up. Well, recently, Skip Bayless spoke and gave his side of the story. Now, we had heard Shannon Sharpe's side of the story. Shannon did an entire podcast with Stephen A. Smith when it was clear that he would be joining Stephen A. Smith on First Take. And you listen to that debate and he spoke about the incidents that we saw on the air with Skip Bayless. He talked about how that made him feel, talked about being so angry that he wanted to actually physically assault Skip Bayless. And we get it. He was mad and he was angry in the moment. But at no point during that entire podcast did we hear Shannon Sharpe articulate, yeah, when Skip fought for me, he tried to get me to not be fired. He didn't want me to go. He actually wanted the show to continue. I was not under the impression, maybe I missed that part in the podcast, but I've heard Shannon Sharpe speak about this on multiple occasions, and never did I once hear him say, well, you know what? Things were going bad between me and Skip, but to be honest with you, Skip wanted to still do the show with me. And it's in reality, I just got fired from the executives upstairs. And so it made me think that, well, if it wasn't for the executives firing you, maybe the show could have survived. I mean, yeah, you guys were clearly mad and upset over a few of the squabbles on air that you had, but maybe there was a chance that the show could survive. And what's interesting to me is, why didn't Shannon Sharpe ever communicate that? Why didn't Shannon Sharpe? It seems like, to be honest with you, he didn't speak the whole truth about what happened between him and Skip. And I get the feeling that he wanted this narrative to develop, that Skip didn't want him around and pushed him out. I know Shannon Sharpe knows what people are saying, right? I know he's on the internet. He tweets a lot. I mean, I hear other people use his social media, but reading his tweets, it sounds like it's his own personal opinion. He responds to people all the time on Twitter. And so it was just very interesting to me as to why would he not fight this narrative that Skip wanted him out? Was it because he was so mad at Skip because of the disrespect? He wanted Skip to look bad? Is that why? Because to me, it comes across as disingenuous that you would allow the narrative that Skip was happy to see you go. You guys had basically broken up during that final year with all of the on-air spats that you had, and he was basically siding with the executives to help get you out. But that's not what Skip wanted. Now, obviously there's two sides to every story. Maybe Skip is lying, but to truth be told, I don't believe he is. Why is that? Skip doesn't seem to me to ever care what anyone thinks about him. Skip, love him or hate him, he's going to speak his opinion, and he does not care. There's lots of people who hate Skip, lots of people who love Skip. Maybe some people fall somewhere in between, right? But Skip has never been the one, to me, to really care about what people think. As a matter of fact, all the time that Shannon was speaking on this, I never heard Skip speak on it. This was the first time I heard him make any public remarks about it, even though it looked like Skip wanted Shannon gone and felt that he could move on and build something better. Turns out he didn't want it gone, and he actually was devastated. Now, again, could Skip not be telling the truth? Maybe. But I don't think Skip needs to lie. I know a lot of people in that situation will probably want to make sure that their image doesn't get tainted, that they don't come across as vindictive or whatever the case may be. But I just think that Skip is so impervious to criticism that he largely does not care. I mean, people have said some savage things about Skip Bayless. I mean, we all know how much Charles Barkley hates Skip, but Skip doesn't ever seem to care about people's opinions. So I'm not of the belief that Skip was lying, right? And again, I know people have two versions of every story, and then there's a third version, right? There's the executives at Fox. We haven't heard their side of the story. We probably never will, because we don't know who any of those people are, let's be honest. But I just thought it was really disingenuous that Shannon Sharpe allowed a narrative that Skip Bayless basically colluded with the executives and wanted Shannon Sharpe out of there. When in reality, Skip even talks about how on the last day, he told them that Shannon Sharpe gets to do what he wanted to do. Now, I'm taking that to mean he probably knew that Shannon was about to go to ESPN and probably link up with Stephen A. Smith. And Skip has talked about wanting to link back up with Stephen A. Smith multiple times. And so it just was so, I'm just struck by that. And the reason why I'm struck by that is because I see people, in my personal opinion, and I know we all love to hate Skip Bayless. He's the bad guy, right? He's the Cowboys fan. He makes a lot of crazy takes. He's always There's a lot to really be pissed off about when you're so opinionated as Skip Bayless and you share your opinion so unabashedly. People are going to hate you. And I get it. Skip Bayless. And also, too, to be honest with you, he's white. He talks about sports. He's kind of in black culture a little bit, right? I'm not going to say he's invited to the cookout, but he's in and around sports where the majority of people are black people. He hangs out with Lil Wayne. Like Skip Bayless, he's kind of like that white guy that's been around black people. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of people who, when you see someone like that, you always look at them with a little bit of suspicion, right? There's always a little bit of suspicion. Like, are you in the culture? Are you not? Are you taking advantage of us? And so that whole situation with Shannon Sharpe definitely had some racial undertones. And there was a lot to question with that. And I honestly think that sometimes Skip Bayless just does not get the credit he deserves. Skip Bayless put a lot of people on. He put a lot of black men on. He looked out for Stephen A. Smith. He looked out for Shannon Sharpe. There have been others as well that he brought to FS1 when he went to FS1. He's always looking for new talent, and a lot of them tend to be black men. He's done a lot with his privilege and his positions in sports media to help bring up and give opportunities to black men. And for me, I felt like I didn't really like how Shannon Sharpe was talking about Skip Bayless when the breakup happened. I get it. You felt disrespected. That makes sense. You have the right to feel how you feel. No one can tell you to feel differently about how you feel. So you feel like he disrespected you. You have a right to articulate that. But I always thought, and this is my opinion, that Shannon Sharpe, he emotionally reacted a bit too passionately for my taste. And let me explain what I mean. I get you didn't like being compared to Tom Brady. I get it. But I personally just never understood why he took that to the levels of disrespect that he took that. I get it. You're a Hall of Fame, multiple Super Bowl champion. You've accomplished a lot. No man ever wants their pedigree and what they've accomplished to be stomped all over. I get it. But you're in a heated debate with someone. You know how debates go. Sometimes people say things that go too far. You've been debating with Skip Bayless for years now. You have to understand that maybe someone might take a cheap shot every once in a while. It happens in arguments. Husbands and wives do it. Best friends do it. At some point, you're going to be in an argument with somebody that you care about, or at least you should care about. And they might say something that cuts deep a little bit. It happens because sometimes when they get back into a corner, people want to win debates and win arguments. Why is it he took it to heart as if Skip was really and truly trying to say that somehow you were an inferior football player? It never made sense to me because most of the time, Skip was always very complimentary about your career. I don't know how many times watching that show, I would hear him talk about you being a Hall of Famer, talk about you being a Super Bowl champion. He was always complimentary and recognized what you accomplished in your career. And I just felt like the one time he was disrespectful about your career, you were ready to end the entire show. It was time to go. It was time, it was like you were so upset and infuriated that it bothered you that much. To me, it came across as slightly immature. He just said, "You're not as good as Tom Brady." Okay. Like, that really set you off that deep? To me, it's just like, I feel like a man in his 50s should have been a little bit more mature than that. That's just my take. And I didn't really like how Shannon Sharpe seemed to be allowing the internet to throw Skip Bayless under the bus. And everybody was happy to see Shannon leave and join First Take. And everybody was so happy about Skip Bayless's impending downfall. And everybody, including me, thought that Skip rolled the dice and thought he could make it without Shannon. But come to find out, he didn't even want Shannon gone. And he was disappointed. And now he's saying he misses him. Again, his side of the story, maybe he's lying, yada, yada, yada. But I'm assuming he's telling the truth because I really don't believe that Skip Bayless has a reason to lie. Especially when things, for the most part, were going good on the show. So I'm just a little bit shocked and disappointed. I have questions about that. I don't really like the fact that Shannon Sharpe, and Shannon Sharpe has not responded to this interview. I have not seen Shannon make any comments on it up until the making of this video. I haven't seen Shannon Sharpe, more importantly, come out and say that Skip Bayless's version of events are false. And so then the question I'm left asking is, why didn't Shannon Sharpe say the whole truth? All he had to come out and say, yeah, me and Skip were having our disagreements, but truth is, Skip didn't want me gone. We were trying to figure it out. He advocated for me, and I was just straight up fired for some of the things that I did. And it was what it was, I think that would have did a world of good for Skip Bayless. People wouldn't have had their pitchforks out for Skip Bayless, right? And maybe Shannon Sharpe wanted the pitchforks to be out. Maybe he wanted Skip Bayless to look bad. He knew that at that moment, maybe Skip Bayless was the competition. He wanted Skip Bayless and FS1 to fail. So if Skip Bayless looked bad, he knew that would make the show Undisputed look bad. And so maybe that was his plan all along. But if it was, that was some scumbag things. That was scumbaggy. Okay, you see Skip Bayless's reputation getting torn through the mud. People already didn't like the fact that you guys were arguing, and now you allowed this narrative that he wanted to push you out to permeate. That ain't cool to me. And I got questions about Shannon Sharpe for letting that happen. Anyway, this has been Providence, man. Thank you guys for listening. I will see you guys in the next video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm trying to grow the channel. I would appreciate your support.